Good evening, everyone, and I welcome you all for this session on interview preparedness for freshers. As you know, the people who are going to sit for the interviews, the freshers, those who are not having the prior experience, they have anxieties, they have stress levels in their mind with respect to what kind of questions will be asked, what kind of preparations have to be done, right? So, in this particular session, we will give you a brief outline with respect to the kind of preparedness that has to be done before appearing for any interview, whether it is technical interview, whether it is a behavioral interview. So there are different kind of interviews which you need to prepare yourself. You have to do certain groundwork, and then only you can excel and win that interviews sessions. Right, so a little brief background about myself. Divya Agarwal, and I am the Associate Dean for Accreditations and Admissions at International Institute of Health Management Research, which is based in Delhi itself. And I have got more than 18 years of work experience, which includes the 6 years of industry experience, where I worked in the capacity of the HR manager in one of the automobile giant at that time, that was Maruti Udyog. And then I shifted to academia for the last 14 or 15 years. That's what my profile is, and I have got taught in various prestigious B schools, including Big Five Business School, then IBMR, which is based out of Bangalore. Then I worked with Amity, I worked with JP. Right, from the last 9 years, I'm associated with International Institute of Health Management Research, and we are catering to hospital and health management. So now coming back to the most awaited part of the session, that is how you have to gear up with respect to the interviews which are lined up maybe within 2 months, or maybe within 6 months, or maybe immediately. So what all preparations have to be done from the candidate's side. So let me share my screen with all of you. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. So before we begin, there are three things to be remembered by all the people who are going to sit for any interview, whether you are a fresher, whether you are experienced. Right? Three things: stay calm. If your interview is tomorrow, right? A lot of butterflies are there in your stomach, right? Stay calm, keep yourself calm, composed, right? Brush up your concepts with respect to the technical part, whatever expertise you require, whether you are from the technical course or you are from the management course, right? So you have to brush up your concepts, and you have to be thorough with the job description. Now the question comes, what is the job description? We always ask, right? This is the vacancy available. So the candidates, they generally are, what is the JD, right? So job description is generally a statement of your duties and responsibilities that you are supposed to do while assuming that position in the organization. Now let's move on and see what are the six things which have to be prepared when you have to sit for any interviews. Right, the first aspect is you have to do research about the organization in which you are planning to aware. So I will be taking them one by all these aspects, I'll be taking one by one. Second one is you have to clearly understand what the role demands, right? What is the actual requirement, right? And you have to see whether you have those skills, right, to meet those requirements. Third one is you prepare your resume, your curriculum vitae or CV, right? Be thorough with your resume, what you have written over there, what you have quoted about yourself. Because at the end, you have given the declaration that all the information is correct to best of your knowledge and belief, right? The fourth one is appropriate dress selection. So when you have to appear for either online or the offline interviews, be prepared with your attire a day before, what you are going to wear for the interview. The fifth one is prepare some of the expected or typical questions. So I will be giving you a glossary of questions which you can prepare well in advance and which usually most of the organization they ask. The next one is go through the mock interview either with one of your family member who is experienced or who is working already into the industry, with some of your friends who are there, who are working in the industry, or they are your batchmates or who have already cleared or cracked the interviews, or you sit with your faculty or who is a mentor for you in the college itself, right, and ask them to ask questions related to the job profiles, right? So these are the six areas briefly where you need to work upon, and surely you will get success. Now, moving to the first aspect for interview preparedness, right? I request all the audience to shoot the questions once we are through with all these six aspects, right? Then you can shoot your questions and then I will answer the queries side by side. So, the first aspect related to the preparedness is research well about the organization, right? What the organizations they look at when you appear for the interview. Any candidate who is appearing, they want to see whether you have interest, right? Whether you have that enthusiasm, right, to become the potential employee of the organization. You have interest in the organization, you know what is organization, what do they deal into, right? So you do your search, right, with respect to the organization, right? And it is a great way you have to showcase your knowledge, your skills and your values that absolutely or somehow they are matching with the company's long term goals or the organization long term goals, because we want to see that you are fit into the bigger picture when we are talking about the values of the organization. So what all things you are supposed to study or you have to see in the organization, right? So this I have given the list of the topics to research before your interview can be scheduled. So that includes what is the philosophy of the organization, why it is necessary to know the philosophy of the organization, because you want to understand what that organization is aspiring themselves to be. So that includes their vision and mission, what they want to become, right? So that should match with the expectations of the employer, right? And your expectations should meet the organization expectations as well. The second one is be well versed with their products and services. If they are into different categories of the products and services, you should know them, right? What all verticals do they have, right? What all services they are offering, right? So that is easily available on their website. Then what, who are their competitors? Suppose they are into the retailing sector, right? So you have to see who are their major competitors and what kind of challenges they are facing with respect to their competitors. Then who are there? Every organization they also talk about what is their clientele. So who are their current clients, what they, where do they sell their products and services, whom they cater to. So they, you need to understand their client base, whether it is the manufacturing industry, whether it is the services industry, it is the hospital industry, right? So you need to see their clientele, right? And what is their future goal with respect to the growth of the organization. Somehow when they divulge about their strategic plans, so they talk about their future goals itself into the strategy document, which is very well aware on any organization website, right? And you can scan through, a lot of things are available into the internet with respect to any organization. What is their previous growth records, how the companies have fared well, right? Or if they had any glitches, what was the time period, what was the economic condition at that time when they suffered any kind of glitches, are there any controversies related to the organization which has happened maybe in the near future or maybe historical. So when we say you have to research well, you have to understand whatever organization you are aspiring that for, that you need to do a research beforehand before you sit for any interview. Right now, the second aspect which you need to focus on is the clarity on role requirements. Now suppose you see some of the job description which has been provided to you online, right? And it is not very clearly, you do not have an understanding of that requirement, so you can write down a mail to get an elaborate description about that particular role which you are supposed to do in that organization, right? So that gives you the responsibilities, the requirements, what actually role you have to perform in the organization, right? What is expected out of you, whether it is whether you are involved. Suppose you, the job description is of the business development, right? So when I talk about business development, then what all territories you are supposed to handle, which location you will be deputed, how you will be aligned with the different vendors, right? How you will be using your channelized, you have to maintain or manage your channel partners. Everything has to be expressed in any typical job description, because that gives you a brief idea about what is their expectation and what kind of questions they can ask, right? Suppose it is a position which is related to a leadership or related to the administrative responsibility, right? They would like to see whether you are able to work with the team, right? Whether you are good at coordination, right? You have the analytical skills. These are the things which they would like to see. So you have to clearly understand the job description as well as the job specification. Now when I use the word job specification, that means what kind of knowledge and skills are required to complete that job at hand, right? What should be the eligibility or the qualification required for that role, right? So that you make an understanding why a particular person is required from, for example, from the engineering background and plus a management degree, right? So if they have clearly specified what are the number of years of experience required, that means that role, if it requires some kind of experience, that means it's not meant for freshers. Sometimes the companies, they look for 0 to 2 years of experience, in which they look for people who are adaptive, who are flexible enough, who are quick learners, who can gel into your organization, right? So that's why they are little flexible in terms of looking for the fresh talent into the organization. Now the next aspect which is very very important when you prepare for any interviews is you have to be thorough with your resume, right? Whatever resume you are attaching with your application form, right? Each and every word has a meaning, right? And that gives a point to the interviewers to ask questions from that, right? So the things which you have to keep in mind is read your resume carefully multiple times, right? When you scan your resume multiple times, you understand where the questions will be pinpointed, where the questions will be asked from the interviewers or from the panelist, right? You need to highlight your most relevant skills and your experience which are relevant to a particular job profile, right? So many candidates, when they look at the job description, they tweak their profile according to the requirement mentioned into the job description, right? So that's what I wanted to say. You need to highlight those skills which are relevant for that job role, right? You have to quantify your accomplishments whenever it is possible. So when you talk about your accomplishments in, whether academically, or if you have gone for a summer internship program in any organization, right? And you have accomplished something for the organization, or you have accomplished something into your academic part, you have to mention, you have to quantify whether you have, for example, you have secured first position in XYZ event, right? Or you have represented the institution at regional level or national level, right? These are, and plus you have to quantify in terms of, suppose you say that I have increased the revenues of the organization by X percentage, so that's what the quantification is. You have to tailor your resume to the specific job you are interviewing for, right? So that's what I said. Look at what is the job profile, what is the job requirement, accordingly tweak your resume, tailor your resume according to the needs. Where you find unnecessary information which can be deleted or which can be cut off, please remove those unnecessary items from your resume. Don't give the same resume every time in different organizations, right? Tailor made according to job description, right? Then you have to practice talking about your resume, because the moment you enter into the interview room, the interviewers might say that briefly describe yourself or tell me about yourself, right? This is a very common question which the interviewers ask to start or begin with the interview, right? So practice how you will introduce yourself, right? How you are going to talk about yourself and highlight what kind of personality you are. That includes your academic profile, right? As well as if you have certain accomplishments in your co-curricular or extracurricular activities, if you are part of certain committees, right? If you are representing the institutions, if you are involved in any kind of, you talk about your skill set as well, what you are comfortable in, what you are expert into, right? So you have to talk about your, you have to practice about your resume multiple times, what you are going to talk about. Now be prepared to answer the questions about your resume. That's what I said. Everything which you are mentioning in your resume, they will see where they are looking for a certain aspect into your profile, right? So if you say I am, if you, regarding your technicals, your certifications or technical skills, you said I am well versed with Microsoft Excel, right? Or the PowerPoint, or if any language do you know, so they will just pick up one of the language if you are mentioning that language, and they will start asking the questions or the technical know-how of that that particular language. You should be able to connect your resume to the job you are interviewing for, right? So you should connect when you are describing about your resume. You should highlight those areas when they are asking the questions. You exhibit those qualities which are desirable for that role, right? For example, team management, right? So you can tweak or you can speak about your accomplishments in a way where you, it shows that you are a team player or team building abilities, right? Be honest and accurate, right? When you are sending your resume or CVs, be honest and accurate about your information. Don't exaggerate your skills or experience, otherwise you will be caught, right? Wherever you have 100% confidence, mention only those skills or your experience in that resume profile or your brief profile, right? You should know each and everything what you are quoting in your resume. Now the next aspect is with respect to the appropriate dress selection. So I have named it as be well groomed, right? So when we are talking about be well groomed, so you have to take some time out of the day before the interview to groom your hair and nails, right? It should be neat and tidy, right? Then you have to iron your clothes. So that's what I said. You have to choose the formal attire, right? And you need to see whether the clothes are properly ironed, right? You have to wear, if you're going for physical interviews, right, then you have to wear appropriate footwear which goes with the formal attire, right? So even if you are going for your online interview, right, your attire has to be professional, it has to be formal attire, right? You cannot appear for an interview in casual attire, right? So adherence to a dress code, that indicates that you have enthusiasm and discipline to do well professionally as well. That shows how much serious you are about that job requirement, and you will be professional in your conduct when you join their organization. That's why it is always recommended to appear in the formal attire. Now, if we discuss regarding the dressing or for the men and the women, right? So a dark color suit with a white or light colored dress shirt and a tie is the most formal and the professional option, right? Avoid wearing anything too casual, such as shorts, t-shirts, or sneakers, right? That gives you are casual towards the job as well, right? So we do not recommend that you should appear in a casual attire while appearing for any interview. For women, any tailored dress or skirt suit, which is a classic and professional option for women. All right. Avoid, all the females should avoid wearing anything too revealing or too casual, such as short skirts, low cut tops, or jeans. Right. So you need to avoid these things. Right. If you're going for a party, you can very well go with this attire. Right. But if you're going for the professional interviews, right, so you have to be into the formal attire. Now, the next aspect is prepare some expected or typical questions which can be asked from any organization. So you have to prepare certain questions, right? So I have categorized them into three, four categories, like the general questions. First is tell me about yourself. So when I said you have to talk about yourself, you have to highlight about your academic part, if you have any other exposure, or if you have participation in co-curricular activities, highlight those areas in your when you're talking about yourself, right? Then another question could be walk me through your resume. So that walk me through your resume means whatever you have quoted right from the beginning into the resume, you have to tell about each and everything, including your education at the school level, moving on to the graduation. And if you are doing a post graduation program, yes, you have to walk the interviewers through entire resume, right? Then why are you interested in this position? So when you are framing the answer for this particular question, you need to understand what they are looking at, what kind of skills they are, and what is the job requirement, what does it talks about. If you do not have a clarity, take the clarity people who are already there into the industry, or from your seniors, or from the faculty, right? They are much experienced, and though they know what kind of questions can be asked from you, right? So you have to understand the role requirement, and finally you have to see why you are interested in this position, right? Because we need to see that spark, why you are so eager to join this position or this organization, right? Then the another question could be, why do you want to work for our company? That's what I said. When you have done a research on, or when you have deep dived into the organization with respect to their product and services, their competitors, their clienteles, their future plans, right? That gives you a space and tell how you fit into the entire picture of the organization. So there you can modify your answers depending about depending upon what organization you are sitting at, right? So why do you want to work for our company? Then the another question could be, what are your strengths and weaknesses, right? So you need to tell about your strengths, what you are good at, and weaknesses should be something where it becomes something like some of your strength itself, right? You need not quote the things which is not appreciated by the interviewer. So maybe in the weakness, sometimes maybe you can quote with respect to that sometimes you lose the patience, right? So or maybe you have to see what kind of areas which needs improvement in yours, right? So that is how you have to quote about your strengths and weaknesses. Right now, the next question is, what are your salary expectations? Now, if you are sitting as a fresher and when you have seen the role requirement, some of the organizations they quote the CTC of the position, right? So they give a range. Sometimes they are very specific, sometimes they give the range, right? 6 to 8 lakhs. So that 6 to 8 lakhs is where you have to justify why this organization should give you 8 lakhs, right? So be reasonable whenever you are quoting your salary expectations as a fresher. If you are experienced, then yes, whatever is your current CTC, right, you can appreciate or you can increase it up to by 25%, maybe 20 to 25% you can increase, and you can ask for that. That depends whether you need to stay within the same city or you need to relocate. To look at the location of the of the organization, right, and accordingly quote your expectations, right? Then do you have any questions for me? Yes, if you have done a research into the organization, you know enough about the organization, you can ask questions too, right? Maybe you can ask, where do I fit into the entire structure of the organization, right? How do I contribute valuably to the organization, right? What kind of responsibilities or the team will be given to you? So these questions you can prepare in advance before appearing for the interview. Maybe they will ask, maybe they do not ask. Some of the organizers will generally ask, if you have any questions, please ask, so that the confusion should not be there. Now the next one is skill specific questions. General questions, I have told you how you have to do it. Skill specific questions. So, in skill specific questions, the questions can be related to the skill set that you have. For example, can you tell me about a time when you used X skill, whatever is mentioned in your resume, to accomplish Y goal? Right? So, you have to justify, if you're saying I have this skills, this particular skill set, then where you have used it, what you have learned. Suppose you said I am well versed, I'm good at data analysis, right? So the next question is, what kind of softwares do you use? Okay, you say I use Strata or SPSS. I use Atlas T for for the qualitative aspect, right? So then they will again ask you questions related to how much you are well versed with that software, right? And how it has helped you in the analysis part, right? So you need to be thorough with your skill set that you are mentioning into your CV. What is your next question could be, what is your experience with X software or programming language? Or suppose you are a BTech graduate, right? Or you are in the final year of engineering. So the questions will be specifically asked if you are into the software domain or you are into your specialization is into IT, right? So how you quote about the knowledge and awareness about a particular software, and they will typically ask where you have used this software, right? What kind of solutions you have provided with respect to that particular language or that software or that program or that particular tool which you are talking about. The next would be, how do you stay up to date on the latest trends and developments in your field? So we would, why we are asking this question, why the interviewers ask these questions is, we want to see whether you have an learning inclination or inquisitiveness or not, whether you want to upgrade yourself from time to time or not, whether you are abreast with the latest developments into your field or not, right? So they would like to see, or they might ask questions, right? What kind of growth you are looking into the organization, and for that, how will you ensure that that growth is being given to you by the organization, right? For example, you want to go for the administrative responsibility, you want to go for the leadership roles, right? So certainly they are going to ask whether you have already led any of the teams or a particular role, or you can say with that you are planning to enroll in XYZ leadership program of XYZ university, and you want to understand how actually it has to be dealt at the top level or at the senior level, right? Then what are your career goals? So they might ask with respect to what you are aspiring yourself to be. So they might ask you, how do you see yourself 5 years or 10 years down the line? So that talks about your aspirations, that talk about your careers, that talk about how you see yourself turning into a different kind of personality in your job domain or in your particular organization, right? What kind of exposure you want from, so that clearly spells out your expectation, what kind of things you expect from the organization. Now another set of questions would be behavioral questions. So behavioral questions, why do we ask behavioral questions? Generally we deal with the people who are working with us in the organization, and we work with them for certain accomplishment of certain goals of the entire organization, and sometimes we are disturbed or perturbed by their behavioral aspect. Sometimes they act very weird, sometimes they are very jovial with you, right? So we would like to understand, how do you handle such behavioral situations at workplace? Will you be able to handle it or not, right? So tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult customer or a colleague or a manager, right? So we will ask you to describe a situation where you were not, for example, you have quoted into your CV that you have successfully organized the sports week or any event annual function into your institution or your college, right? So we will ask, when you have organized this event, what kind of challenges did you face and how did you deal with the students who are difficult to manage, right? So we would like to see, when you say organize, you have to be thorough, and you have to stay calm, and you have to handle the situation very calmly with respect to the people who are having different behavioral issues, right? Remember that similarly in the organization, people will not be of your liking, right? They are having different perceptions, they have different attitudes, they are coming from different value system, they have the different beliefs, right? And they have different style of working, right? Some people are very quick, some people are always habitual of finishing the task on the last date, right? So how do you deal with them? That's why we are asking this question, right? Another question could be, tell me about a time when you made a mistake and how you handled it, right? So you have to quote, you have to tell, you have to think on this particular aspect, right? When you made a mistake, right? And how you handled that mistake, because that created a chaos in your life, that created a chaos in your college or at your family. How did you handle it? So you need to see or tell about these aspects with respect to how you rectified or how you manage the behavioral aspect of the entire situation. That's why I'm asking about your mistake, right? Because generally when you make a mistake, right, you try to either hide it or sometimes you confess it and you bear the consequences. How do you deal with it? Another questions could be, tell me about a time when you want above and beyond to meet a deadline or expected or exceed the expectations, right? So maybe they will ask you where you have gone overboard and you have accomplished something which was quite impossible for others to accomplish. Tell that situation to them and how you dealt with it, because such situations are very challenging, right? People might not accept it, people might resist it. How do you manage it? Tell about that particular time. Tell me about a time when you have to work under pressure, right? So work under pressure, it can be at college level where the multiple assignments are given to you. The classes are from 9 to 8 o'clock, now 9 to 6 p.m., right? You have to study for the ongoing subjects, you have to submit the assignments, you have to, there are other participations in other events as well. Everything is going side by side. So how did you handle that pressure, right? How did you manage those multitasks which were being given to you at the college level? So we would like to see whether you have an ability to work under pressure, because when you go into the job, into any organization, there are a lot of expectations from you, right? And they would like to see if you can handle that kind of stress with you or not, or you will have any kind of issues with respect to them. Now, the last one is the you have to go through the mock interview. That's what I said, either with a family member or your friends or colleagues or your faculty, or if you have any mentor which are being assigned by your college itself, or you have a mentor with whom you can share anything or everything, whether it is professional or personal. Right, so you have to take their guidance. So, what you have to do, there are certain steps which you have to do when you go for a mock interview. So you have to choose a person that you would like them to interview you, right? Who is almost similar, who is familiar with the job requirement, right? And the one who can provide you honest and constructive feedback, how you fared well into the mock interview, right? You have to schedule a time for the mock interview. Make sure that you give yourself enough time to prepare for the mock interviews, right? Then when you schedule, you have to prepare for a mock interview, that is researching about the organization, right? What is that position talking about? Some commonly asked Practicing some of the commonly asked questions, right? These are the questions which you are supposed to prepare. Then when you are going even for mock interview, dress professionally for the mock interview. That gives you a feel that how will you feel once you go for the actual interview. Next one is during the mock interview, you that's what I said, you have to be relaxed and be confident about yourself. I know you might be nervous, you might be desiring or aspiring for that particular job which is there in front of you, right? You have to sound confident, you have to stay relaxed, right? They will ask questions, you have to answer, right? The moment you remember, the moment you enter into any physical interview room, right, they will just look how professionally they see your professional conduct, they see how you communicate, and they understand what kind of perspectives are being held by you, right? And after the mock interview, ask your interviewer for the feedback. Don't forget to take the feedback and work on the areas of improvement when you go for actual interview. Now, when you go for the interviews, there might be certain situational questions. So, why do we ask situational questions? Why the panelists ask situational questions? They give you a situation, then they will ask, how will you act into this particular situation? Right? They would like to read and understand your mind and your perception, right? How you are able to communicate effectively, how you are managing your stress, and how you are solving your problem. That's why we ask those situational questions. Another thing is we want to see your values and ethics while during the a particular situation. What will be your conduct, right? So we would like to see whether those that conduct is aligning with the values and ethics of my organization or not. Many organizations, they generally keep a fit round. In fit round, they see whether you fit with the culture of the organization or not, right? Whether you will be able to gel with the philosophy of the organization or not. Finally, they would like to see when they ask the situation based question related to your achievements, right? So, where you can highlight your relevant experience, your achievements, that you already possess those qualities which the job requires, and that gives the justice to the role, right? So, we will give you a typical situation of day to day operations into my organization, and I'll ask you how you will deal with it. How will you solve it? Right? I would like to see your perception. I will see how you solve it. I would like to see how, when you're solving that problem, whether you are ethical in your approach, right? And whatever you have mentioned into your CV with respect to your achievements, whether you are exhibiting while solving that situational case or not, right? Sometimes the interviewers, some of the organizations, when they are looking at the analytical skills, they give you the case studies where they give you a particular case of an organization, and they would like to see how you are able to churn out the numbers out of the figures given to you, the profile given to you, and how usefully you take out the information required for the solving the questions given at the end of the case study. So that is a case study approach where we would like to see whether you have an ability to understand what the case is talking about, what the business is talking about. Another question, another set of questions could be related to, we call it as guesstimates, right? Guess estimates. So we call it as guesstimates. So guesstimates is where you have to guess the estimated amount which is being asked into the question. For example, if you say, they might ask you, right? Generally, they ask, which is your favorite sport, right? And you say, for example, you said that I like badminton, or I prefer watching cricket. This is your favorite sport. So the next question they might ask related to that is, can you estimate the total number of bats in India? Right. So you, when you have to answer these questions, we are not asking you to answer immediately. We will give you 2 minutes time. We'll give you pen and paper, and we will would like to see your problem solving approach. Right. For example, when I'm talking about the total number of bats, you need to have an estimate about what is the total population of India and what is the young population, right, which is involved into playing cricket, right? Even you have to see the age category which is playing the cricket, right? You need to have a brief idea and estimate about that particular chunk of the population, right? And then you can quote the number of bats which are being there or they are produced in India, right? Another question could be, how many teacups have been consumed in in Delhi itself in the month of October 2023. So you need to have an understanding with respect to the, what is the preference of the population, whether they prefer tea or coffee, right? Suppose they tea, 80% are tea lovers, 20 are the coffee lovers, right? So you segregate, you have an idea what is the population of Delhi, right? And accordingly, you start estimating what is the minimum number of cups being consumed with the 80% of the population, right? And you give an estimate to them. So we would like to see what is your approach in solving that problem, right? So these are the guesstimate questions, situation based questions, right? Case study based questions, right? Sometimes they, the interviewers, they will just look at you, they will not give any nod to you when you are answering the questions, and that creates a stress in your mind whether you are right or wrong when you are answering those questions. Why do we use that? We use that particular aspect because we wanted to see whether you get stressed easily when we are not responding, right? Are you able to manage that stress or not, right? Sometimes they might, when you are answering the question, they might interrupt you in between, they ask another question, so you do not have an idea whether I am right or wrong, right? So that creates a stress into your mind or the anxiety in your mind where I went wrong, right? So those things will be checked into stress based interviews, right? We would like to see your stress handling ability, right? Whether you lose your patience, whether you get irritated, whether you are answering the questions very absurdly, right? Sometimes you might become rude as well. So we would like to see that aspect as well, because that is the requirement of that particular job. That's why we are asking that question from you, right? So those are the stressed, that is known as stress interview, right? Sometimes we will ask you to narrate an incident into your in your life, and we will ask you how you have handled that particular situation, right? So we will probe, you will describe that situation to them. They will say what has happened, you describe the entire event, you describe that awful event which has happened, and then they will start probing the questions for that event, and that slowly and gradually they understand how you actually dealt with that question. So those kind of questions are related to your behavioral aspects. Remember, when you are talking, when you are appearing for any interview, they are checking, just checking whether you will fit into the culture, whether you are not suffering from any behavioral issues, because ultimately you have to work with other people into the organization, right? Another aspect is when you are appearing for an interview, you have to maintain a good body posture. We call it as good body language. Your body speaks a lot. Suppose there are three panelists into your interview, right? So two of them are asking the question, the third one is just silent, right? The silent one is just observing your body language, which talks about your non-verbal communication, your posture, your intonations, right? The way you are using your hands, your gestures, everything will be noticed by the third person, right? So a good posture, whatever posture you are, so where you have to take a good posture, that indicates that you are confident and comfortable in your skin, right? And another thing is there are certain tips also, right, to communicate your confidence with your body language, how you can communicate that, right? Shake hands when the moment you enter, you can shake hands with the interviewer present, right? If the interview is in person, right? Do not slouch. You don't have to slouch. Remember, you have to sit straight, but you have to sit straight. It should not be very stiff, right? You do not have to be stiff, right? Keep smiling, keep a smile on your face, and nod to acknowledge that you understand what the interviewer is saying to you, right? You have to acknowledge whatever they are saying. So smile, take it with a smile, and give a nod to it, right? Use minimal hand gestures when communicating your ideas or giving the answers, right? You have to use your hand gestures, right? But that should not be excessive. For everything, you should not use your hand gestures. So your hand gesture should be minimal. Do not fidget or play with your hair or clothes during your interview. Sometimes it is observed people start putting their hand on their hair, they do like this, they are doing something with their skin, right? Or they do something with their cloth, right? That shows that you are not confident. Somewhere you are fiddling or somewhere your confidence is shaking. So do not fidget or play with that, right? And most importantly, make an eye contact without hesitation. There are interviewers, there is single interviewer, there are five people into the panel. When the person who is asking the questions, maintain the eye contact with them. That shows that you're confident in your personality, you're confident about yourself, right? That talks about a lot of personality about the candidate. Most important part when you are giving the interviews, communicate clearly. Right? So clear communication is often being tested during your interviews. We are not in a hurry. Remember, you have to answer your questions to the interviewers. Be clear, be slow, not very slow, right? Whatever you are speaking, that should be clearly understood by them, right? As a fresher, The way you share your ideas, it can either make your deal, whether you crack that interview, or break the deal. You will not be able to qualify for that interview, right? So remember, there is no train that you have to catch up, no bus is waiting for you to catch up, right? Don't be in a hurry. Communicate your things very clearly. That's what I said. You have to practice about your resume and the typical questions, and give a pause, right? Where you have to do the modulation of your voice, where you have to stress upon. So that, why do we stress? When we stress, that makes a remembrance in the mind of the person who is listening to us, right? That's what I am saying. You have to be very clear about your thoughts, your speech, right? So there are certain tips for all of you. Structure your thoughts and arguments before presenting them to the interviewer, right? So whatever question, whatever thoughts are coming to your mind, organize them. Whatever argument you want to give, think before you speak, right? So structure them, how you are going to present, how you are to answer that. Choose your words carefully when you are answering your questions to the interviewers. The choice of words have to be careful, right? Avoid the use of informal language. Whatever you use it with your family or your friends or your colleagues, right? You have to remember, it's a formal environment and your language has to be formal, right? Be keen to listen to the interviewer with intent, what they are asking, and allow them to finish speaking before replying, right? Allow them to finish whatever they are speaking, whatever their valid points are, right? And then only reply, right? Other, if you interrupt them in between, if you interrupt them in between, that creates lot of annoyance on the part of the interviewers, that you are not listening to them, you are not giving importance to them. Listen to them, right? For let them finish the whatever they want to say, and then you have to reply, right? Frame short, crisp sentences to answer each question, right? You have to frame the questions, right? You have to frame whatever sentences you do not make very long sentences. Your sentences are to be short and crisp, right? And each questions understand first and then answer, right? You have to answer them in a structured way. That's what I said. You are not in a hurry, right? You are not going to lose any train. You don't have to catch any train, right? Listen to them, spend some time with them, express your thoughts, structure your thoughts, talk about your achievements, highlight your key areas or skill sets, dress professionally, right? Be thorough with what is the job requirements, right? Prepare the questions well in advance, which generally are being asked, right? So that these are some of the areas, these are some of the tips which will help you in cracking any of the interviews. Not even as freshers, even when you once you get experienced also, these tips will certainly help you in cracking any kind of interviews, right? Remember, they are not sitting to criticize you. Don't think what they will think about you. Yes, they are thinking about you, they are talking about you, right? Don't get perturbed, right? So don't get perturbed about these things, and appear with total confidence into any interview which are lined up in future, right? So we have shared the that's all about this particular session, and the participants and the audience are requested to fill this Google form, right? So we love to see your feedback about this particular session, right? And you will also receive the certificates for participation into this webinar or this live session, in which you have understand what has to be carried on with respect to the particular interview scenario, right? So if you have any questions, you can put into the comments section so that it can be handled well in advance. Right? So if you have any questions, please ask that. You can put it into the comment section. In the meanwhile, I'll just see. If you have any queries in your mind, right? If you are lined up for any interviews or future interviews, please ask any question which might help you in clearing your interviews, right? Because see, interviewers are sitting at this end, they have certain expectations from you, right? Similarly, you have expectations from their job requirement. Always apply for those jobs where you feel that you are the best fit for that organization. Right? For example, if you are doing an MBA program and your specialization is into HR, right? We will not like you to see into any marketing profile, right? That will show that you have an inclination towards HR, but maybe you are not getting the job anywhere. That's why you are sitting for the marketing profile. So that should not be done, right? So there is one question into the comment window: how to cope up with the nervousness during the interviews. So that's what I said. There might be a lot of butterflies in your stomach, right? When you do your ground preparation with respect to any organization you are sitting for, that boost or gives a confidence into your profile. The moment you enter into the interviewer's room, yes, you might be little nervous because you do not know what kind of questions they are going to ask, right? Sit straight, right? When you have to look into their eyes, greet them well, and see how do they respond. That gives you a lot of comfort, because taking an interview is also an art, right? We have been groomed into, when we take the interviews, we make our interviewees very comfortable, right? So when we are making you comfortable, that gives you a space where you can speak freely about the questions being asked about yourself, right? Stay calm before entering the room. Maybe you can drink little water, because when we drink, we hydrate ourselves. That reduces the nervousness, right? So remove, have a glass of water before entering the room, right? Don't be nervous. Nervousness will only come with respect to what questions will be asked, right? They are not going to grill you, right? They are just going to check whether you are fit for that role or not. Be confident about whatever you have done, right? So that gives a lot of confidence in yourself. The moment you have appeared for the first interview, you will understand that they are not going to eat you, they are not going to fire you, right? They are only going to check your knowledge level, your technical expertise, and your management capabilities, how you handle certain situations. I hope I have answered that question with respect to the interviews. Prepare the questions, some typical questions. When you prepare those questions, that automatically reduces your nervousness or anxiety levels, right? Any other question which the audience would like to? Okay, there is one question: how to attempt the questions which we don't know. Attempt in the sense, you are talking about the written test, written exam. If you are talking about written exam, right, if you do not know the answer, you should not attempt that question, right? If I have given you 10 questions, I'm not expecting yet you should get 10 out of 10, right? I'm expecting that you might be knowing about 5 to 6 questions. So no need to no need to worry if you have left any questions. If you're talking about the physical interviews in which you are not able to answer any question, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm not aware about this particular aspect, right? Because we are not expecting you to be well versed in everything. We just wanted to check certain aspect. If you do not know, you can apologize, or you can say that I'm sorry, I do not know about this particular area, but yes, after the interview you are going to read about it, right? So that shows that you have a learning inquisitiveness, right? I hope that serves the purpose with respect to the questions attempt, that you how to attempt the questions which we do not know. We do not ask you to answer all the question 100%, right? Another question, any other question which is there in your mind? Please ask, feel free to ask the questions, because every time you prepare for any interview, be specific, be tailor made about your resume. Don't give the same resume every time. So there are two questions, right? So as an interviewer, what is your favorite color for formal suits, and what is the best way to draft and practice an elevator pitch, right? So for the formal attire, for the males itself, we prefer it has to be either navy blue, or it's a combination of the black and white combination which you can wear, right? We prefer, these are the formal colors which we prefer, right? And how you can draft, right? How you can draft and practice an elevator pitch. You have to first draft a pitch for yourself which talks about you, which talks about your accomplishment. Draft that pitch with respect to what skill sets are there, why you are doing that course. For example, you are in a BTech program, or if you are doing, you have already BTech, you are into MBA program. So you have to start with, when you say I have done a BTech program from XYZ university, and that made me think that ultimately I have to deal with people, I have to deal with teams, and you wanted to understand the management aspects. That's why you enrolled for a program, in management program in post graduation level, and you aspire to take admission in that particular university, right? You prepare or draft your pitch with respect to your skill set, with respect to your educational, every point needs to have a rationale and justification why you did that, right? So that makes your pitch very strong. Show or draft your pitch and show it to your mentors or your faculty, right? They will help you to draft it even, or they will refine it more and more professionally, right? There is one question that I'm a fresher, I don't know any language, can I be placed? So if you're talking about the soft, I don't know what is your background, right? What is your graduation, or if you're doing a post graduation, so what is your background? It hardly matters that if you are not well versed about the language, and here I can understand about the software languages, right? If you do not know the software languages, see, right now we are into the digital era. We are not talking about you to, we are not here to learn about the languages. But if the job requirement is there where you need to have an understanding of a, right, okay, so you are a software developer in computer science engineering, right? So during your graduation or a BTech program, you might have worked on certain language which was being taught into you, right? You can quote that you have learned, but you have not worked on any live project related to that language which was being taught during the graduation, right? And it is expected, if you are from the software background, you need to have an understanding basics of the languages learned during your curriculum, right? We also understand that you are a fresher, you have not worked into the live environment, right? So we just need to see whether you have a basic understanding of that language or not, right? So if you are going for, there is another question, if you are going for a particular position but the interviewer asks for another position, then what should do? Okay, so suppose you have applied for a particular position, and during the interview the interviewer is finding you suitable for another role, right? For that particular case, you can ask what clearly would be your job responsibilities, and if that gives you a spark or that gives you a kick, right? So you can say that I can think about it, and you are open about it, but your first preference is the position which you have applied for. This is how smartly you can answer the question. And later on, you can think, when the position is being offered to you, then we are given a choice with respect to these positions, then you can think and take guidance from some of your uh, family members, those who are into the industry, your seniors, your faculty, right? And accordingly, you opt for that particular role, right? Look, ask the question what the another profile entails, right? Right. And there is another question. In introducing ourselves, specifically the qualification part, do we need to provide the information in certain order? Yes, you have to start, it has to be in chronological order. Remember that it has to be a chronological order, right? And you have to quote about how you have progressed throughout your education profile in your life, right? That is how you have to provide your information and the kind of exposures that you have got, whether you have done an MBA, you have done a BTech, or you're from the medical side. You have to tell about and quote about the different exposures that you have got, highlight that chronologically. That is how you deal with this particular question, right? You can start it anyways, maybe from the latest to the older one, or from right from the 10th and 12th, from to graduation till post graduation. It's the way you want to say about yourself. There is no set order we are seeking at. We would just would like to see how you have shaped up your personality and why you have opted for certain courses. As work from home is normal nowadays, so can we ask for it in interview? Okay. So that totally depends what the job profiles is. Suppose you are in industry where your this particular job profiles can be done from home itself. You need to have a justification why you are looking for work from home. If you have a solid justification, you can ask whether it is it's into the physical mode, or is into the offline role, or it is a hybrid role, or it's a requirement that we can work from home also. Are there any options of the work models? You can ask the question itself. And if you're asking for any kind of, if you want any favor for that, that can be done at the later stage, not in the preliminary stages, right? When you are giving the interview, first qualify for that round, right? And when you are going for the negotiations with respect to your salary and everything, there you can ask these questions and negotiate accordingly, right? Any other question? I hope this session was indeed helpful for all the participants who were there into the system, and we would love to see your feedback itself, right? And wish you all the best for your future roles requirement, for your future job interviews. Be confident, keep these pointers into your mind, and appear with confidence in any interviews. And surely you will crack your interviews, right? Some question again has come, so maybe in the feedback form itself you can write the question also, right? And we will revert to you with that particular question, right? So good evening all of you, and have a nice weekend itself. Bye bye, take care.